Today's story was written by Reddit user leoduhvinci. "The end of times has come," shouted Old Man Armstrong, his scraggly grey beard twitching as he shook a fist. "Repent! Repent! To forgive is to forget, and only those who forget sin are saved." It was the morning before the lunar rising, and I walked back from the bus stop with Mike, the miner who used to live in the apartment next to mine before I bought the house across the street. Our town was a coal town, and these were coal apartments. They said having a miner in a room devalued it faster than a smoker. It meant we got the cheapest rent. It also meant we got the worst rooms. We should have stayed in the apartment, but with Jimmy on the way, my wife had insisted. I had been love drunk back then. Still am, but the hangover has started to come on. A mortgage you can't escape will do that to a marriage. And the realtor knew we were screwed before we signed the paper. It hadn't always been that way, back before the layoffs on the mine, before they cut wages because the line of men waiting for work stretched longer each day, and the union steadily lost its grip on management. Mike hadn't married, not for lack of trying. His square face and heavy-set stature did little to attract the ladies, though many considered those his best qualities. With each short-term girlfriend that had left him over the years, the bags under his eyes grew longer, while the few words that left his mouth were hardened to steel. Now, it seemed every weekend there was a different rusty car in his visitor spot, and never for more than 2 weekends in a row. "Repent!" shouted Old Man Armstrong at him as we reached the bus stop, and Mike cursed under his breath. Today was a Tuesday, and Mary drove the bus on Tuesdays, and Mary never took a left turn. Mike stared at the clock, but Mary's foot on the accelerator was more stubborn than the ticking second hand. "Repent!" shouted the Old Man Armstrong, his clothes full of holes from nights on the streets, and Mike turned to face him. "Shut it, will you?" he shouted, red-faced. Poking out of his pocket was a pink warning slip from showing up to the mine with alcohol on his breath. One more of those and he wouldn't be showing up to the mine again. "Just shut it, damn it!" He crumpled up the pink slip and threw it on the ground, where it bounced under a trash can. "They will come for you like a thief in the night, and you will rise again," Old Man Armstrong shouted, spittle flying out of his mouth through the gap in his missing 4 front teeth, as he pointed to Mike. "Repent!" "Oh, because Jesus will just fix everything, won't he?" sneered Mike, looking down the street, still no Mary. "Jesus, Muhammad, Thor, Ra, Hercules, Buddha, all the same," came the response, coupled with shrieking laughter. "All truth and all lies. Same stories over and over and over. We remember them, you see. The same plots, the same characters, the same play." "The hell, and don't you ever sleep?" asked Mike, while I watched the Old Man Armstrong. He twitched, casting a glance into the night sky at the setting moon. "Don't sleep no more, don't need to," he answered. "Don't need to. Remember the stories and repent. They're all we have, who we are, then forget them forever." He cackled, and Mike sighed as Mary's bus turned the curb, coming to a stop before us. We boarded, depositing our spare change, then Mary shifted into gear. Only right turns meant we arrived back home at least 15 minutes later than normal. That, of course, had been yesterday, but today, as I stepped into the sunlight, I wouldn't be able to use Mary's driving as an excuse for being late. Mark drove on Wednesdays, and Mark was always early. My wife would be at work by now, but I was supposed to pick Jimmy up for school. She'd be furious if we were late again. But she'd understand after I explained what happened in the mine, even if I don't understand it myself. So I reached under the trash can and fetched the pink warning slip Mike had thrown away the morning before. "Beautiful moon last night," said Mark when he pulled up, pulling the lever to open the door halfway. He stared at me, waiting. His fingers wrapped around the wheel. He flashed a smile, and I saw one of his teeth was missing. Mark never smiled, but had that tooth been gone before? He waited, keeping the door just half ajar so I couldn't enter. "Beautiful moon," he repeated, and his stare seemed to double in intensity, as if it were placing a weight on my chest. "Right, beautiful moon," I squeaked back, my voice higher than it should have been. He nodded, then opened the door, letting me file into a seat. The bus was empty, a rare occurrence for this time of the morning. Usually people would be standing in the aisle. The only open seat would be 17E, which was missing a cushion, or 12A, that's where Pete used to sit, back before the mine collapse took him. No one sat there now, just wouldn't be right. I rode in silence, staring out the window as we moved. Traffic was light, and there was something off about the houses that we passed. Something I couldn't quite place until we pulled outside my own. All the cars were in the driveways, on a Wednesday, near 8 in the morning, including my wife's, a new SUV we had bought for Christmas, another loan we'd added to the list. I tread across the grass to approach the door as Mark pulled away, my shoes leaving footprints in the dew. We had a sidewalk, but she didn't like me using it coming back from the mine, left footprints sometimes, while the grass helped clean my shoes in a way concrete couldn't. And reaching the door, I creaked it open, stepping through the hallway and into the kitchen. My wife stood with her back to me, her hands in the sink washing dishes. She turned as I entered, though my feet had made no sound and I'd closed the door without a click. Taking a dish rag, she wiped her hands off slowly, the fibres absorbing any moisture. Her fingernails clicked on the countertop as she dropped the rag. But my wife hated long nails, especially after mine constantly exhibited dirt under the surface. Every evening she filed them down, just as she had for years, though the dust never seemed to accumulate. Then she flashed me a smile, the same smile that Mark had given me on the bus, and she spoke, her eyes just not meeting mine, but boring into them. "Welcome home, honey," she said, her voice smooth. "Beautiful moon."